We all know what is morally good. We all know what is morally right. And deep down inside, we all want to aspire to lead a life that is right. And yet, the path isn't easy. And so, in this video, we will take a look at why such is the case and what we can do about it. Hey guys, thank you for stopping by and welcome to another episode of Making Sense of Life with me, Mario. If you have watched my previous video on Are We Really Free? We've seen that true freedom makes sense within a moral framework. That true freedom is a freedom for something rather than a freedom from something. In other words, true freedom is about doing what is right. Yet, in as much as we are aware of it and would want to live that way, the struggle still remains, as our blessed Lord said. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Matthew chapter 26, verses 41. Daniel Kahneman, in his book Thinking Fast and Slow, speaks about System 1 and System 2, where System 1 refers to the subconscious mind and System 2 refers to the conscious mind. The subconscious mind effortlessly originates impressions and feelings that are the main sources of the explicit beliefs and deliberate choices of the conscious mind. The automatic operations of the subconscious mind operate surprisingly complex patterns of ideas, but only the slower conscious mind can construct thoughts in an orderly series of steps. Yet, while in most cases the subconscious mind seems to be a dominant thought process, there are times where the conscious mind takes over the free-willing impulses and association of the subconscious mind. Both systems have their abilities, limitations, and functions. The subconscious mind runs automatically while the conscious mind functions in a comfortable, low-effort mode in which only a fraction of its capacity is engaged. The subconscious mind continuously generates suggestions for the conscious mind, whether that is impressions, intuitions, intentions, and feelings. If endorsed by the conscious mind, impressions and intentions turn into beliefs and impulses turn into voluntary action. When all goes smoothly, the conscious mind adopts the suggestions of the subconscious mind with little or no modification. Thus, when a thing happens, we believe our impressions and act on our desires. When the subconscious mind runs into difficulty, it calls on the conscious mind to support more detailed and specific processing that may solve the problem of the moment. The conscious mind is mobilized when a question arises for which the subconscious mind does not offer an answer. You can also feel a surge of the conscious attention whenever you are surprised. When surprised, the conscious mind is activated when an event is detected that violates the model of the world that the subconscious mind maintains. Surprise activates and orients our attention. That is when we try to search our memory for a story that makes sense of the surprising event. The conscious mind is also credited with the continuous monitoring of our own behavior, the control that keeps us polite when we are angry and alert when we are driving at night. The conscious mind is mobilized to increased effort when it detects an error to be made. For example, remember a time when you almost blurted out an offensive remark and note how hard you work to restore control. Most of what the conscious mind thinks and does originates in our subconscious mind, and the conscious mind takes over when things get difficult, for which it normally has the last word. The division of labor between the subconscious and the conscious mind is highly efficient. It minimizes effort and optimizes performance. The arrangement works well most of the time because the subconscious mind is generally very good at what it does. Its models are familiar situation accurate. Its short-term predictions are usually accurate as well, and its initial reaction to challenges are swift and generally appropriate. Yet the subconscious mind has biases, systematic errors that it is prone to make. For example, the subconscious mind causes us to be biased towards something, although that particular thing may not be the case, or we may not want to do a particular task even though it is important or necessary. It tends to take the easier route by answering the easier question than the one it was asked, and it has little understanding of logic and statistics. One further limitation of the subconscious mind is that it cannot be turned off. If you are shown a word on the screen in a language that you know, you will read it unless your attention is totally focused elsewhere. Thus, one of the prime tasks of the conscious mind is to overcome the impulses of the subconscious mind, because the subconscious mind operates automatically and cannot be turned off at will. Errors of intuitive thought are often difficult to prevent. Biases cannot always be avoided because the conscious mind may have no clue to the error. Even when cues to likely errors are available, errors can be prevented only by the enhanced monitoring and effortful activity of the conscious mind. As a way to live our life, however, continuous vigilance is not necessarily good, and it is certainly impractical. For instance, constant questioning our own thinking would be impossibly tedious, and the conscious mind is much too slow and inefficient to serve a substitute for the unconscious mind in making routine decisions. The best we can do is to recognize situations in which mistakes are likely to occur, to try harder to avoid significant mistakes when the stakes are high. Sometimes it is easier to recognize other people's mistakes than our own, but at least in doing so, we can try to learn so as not to repeat it in our own lives. Several psychological studies have shown that people who are simultaneously challenged by demanding cognitive tasks and by temptation are more likely to yield to the temptation. For the sake of brevity, I won't go too much into detail, but one experiment that I would like to highlight is the famous Marshmallow Test by Walter Mischel, who found that children who were able to control their cravings fared better later in life, whether it was academics, careers, finances, and so on. For those of us who want to be at the next level, not just in the spiritual life but also in whatever other goals that we may want to achieve, the struggle can be challenging, demanding, and maybe even painful or overwhelming. And yet, nothing that was not worth it came easy. There was a price to be paid. Good things, those that truly would enrich our lives, are worth fighting for. So, inasmuch as the struggle can be intimidating, it's important to not be perturbed, but to assess the situation calmly and focus on what is within our control. Start small. Small steps lead to big wins. Human will is like a muscle. Activities that impose high demands on the conscious mind require self-control, and the exertion of self-control is depleting and unpleasant, which is why after exerting self-control in one particular task, generally it is very unlikely we would make an extra effort in another task, although it can be done if there is a strong incentive to do so. If you have seen my video on consistency and why it matters, I touch upon how the habits we cultivate shapes us for the better or for the worse, and like anything else in life that we become good at, gradually, leading a virtuous life does not necessarily entail huge acts of heroism, although that too indeed can happen. Rather, it is rooted in the little things that we do every day. No doubt we will have our fallings and shortcomings, but that should not stop us from striving to lead the life that God has called us to live, a life of virtue. Sometimes God allows such things to happen in our lives in order that we do not get puffed up with pride, that we stay grounded and remain humble, as St. Paul would speak about the thorn in the flesh in 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verses 7 to 10. St. John of the Cross in his book The Dark Night of the Soul explains to us about what happens when our motives for doing good or being good can be warped. That is when it springs forth from a place of pride and not from humility, as is seen in the following words. There are those who are vexed with themselves when they observe their own imperfections and display an impatience that is not humility. So impatient are they about this that they would fain be saints in a day. Such people seek to accomplish a great deal and make great resolutions. Yet, as they are not humble and have no misgivings about themselves, the more resolutions they make, the greater is their fault and the greater their annoyance, since they have not the patience to wait for that which God will give them when it pleases Him. This is contrary to the spiritual meekness which cannot be wholly remedied, but the purgation of the dark night. Don Lorenzo Scupoli warns us in his book Spiritual Combat and a Treatise on the Peace of the Soul that even if it were for no fault of ours and we find an aversion for spiritual things, we should still hold on and never give up, as he writes. However barren and insipid your usual exercises may seem, be resolute and persevering in your execution of them, drinking cheerfully the bitter cup the Heavenly Father has presented to you. Despite the dryness we may experience when it comes to prayer, and despite our best efforts in our oppressive cloud of spiritual darkness, it is important to not get discouraged. The devil is too shrewd in getting us into discouragement. When we fall to a sin, he takes up our sins and puts it up in our face and starts accusing us that we are never capable of God's love and mercy. And that is a lie. He's a liar and the father of lies, and has always been the case from the beginning of time. Brother Lawrence, the author of the book The Practice of the Presence of God, was aware of his faults, but he was not discouraged by them. Whenever he fell from grace or did something wrong, he confessed them to God, but did not plead to be excused from them. Whenever such a thing happened, he acknowledged his mistake, asked for forgiveness, and peacefully resumed his usual practice of love and adoration, as he wrote. When I fail in my duty, I readily acknowledge it, saying, I'm used to doing so. I shall never do otherwise. If I'm left to myself, if I fail not, then I give thanks to God, acknowledging that the strength comes from Him. It was also observed that in the life of Brother Lawrence, whenever he had not thought of God for a good while, he did not discreet himself for it, but after having acknowledging his wretchedness to God, he returned to Him with even greater zeal and trust. After he had finished his work, he would examine himself and see how he had done. If he had done well, he would thank God, and if he did not do well, he would ask pardon from God, as if he had not deviated from it. He would say, by rising after my falls and by frequently renewed acts of faith and love, I have come to a state where it was difficult not to think about God. Inasmuch as we venerate the saints and can sometimes be in awe in regard to the level of sanctity that they have achieved, they became who they were because they knew their need for God. The irony is that the more one goes along the path of virtue and grows in holiness, the more one realizes how much more they need to work on themselves and need the grace of God. It is like if you are wearing a stained shirt in the dark, you are not able to see the stains, but as you slowly begin to approach the light, you begin to see the stains, and then you realize how much of washing or cleaning the shirt requires. I guess the important thing is to come to God in humility with all our brokenness and messiness and allow Him to work His wonders in our lives. All in all, it is on the path of struggle that leads us to becoming the best version of ourselves, in becoming who God created us to be, if only we apply ourselves to it, for nothing that was not worth it came easy. If being good, holy, and achieving our goals or being productive were easy, you would not be watching this video and I would not be making this video. Everyone would be crushing their goals and dreams and becoming saints. And so I hope you have been able to draw some value from this video, in as much as it has been a learning experience for me. Do share your comments down below, and I would like to know what you guys think. And if you like this video, please leave a like and subscribe to this channel if you haven't. Take care, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching and God bless.